morning, everybody. Welcome to the Huntington Library, Art Museum, and Botanical Gardens. And yes, we are open. The gardens are open to the public. And so I've invited you today to join me on a virtual tour and give a little taste of what you'll see when you come. My name is Ted Matson. I'm the curator of the bonsai collections here. And again, want to welcome you to the 2021 Bonsai-A-Thon virtual bonsai tour. Let's start with this. This is a beautiful bald cypress that was donated to our collections by Dr. Tom Chen. You can see beautiful base, wonderful fluting with those heavy veins along the trunk. This tree always tells a great story of how bonsai is made. You can see exactly where the trunk cuts were made. You can see every extension of the top trunk that was built up. The branching, we're now working on building a lot of fine twig structure in there. And this tree also gives us wonderful fall color. We just haven't gotten quite warm enough or cool enough for that color to show up yet. But in another 2-3 weeks, this should just be a beautiful, intense coppery orange. Pretty powerful tree. Let's continue around this way. I just want to point out some of the highlights that we have, as you'll see. I'd like to point out this tree. This is a pretty famous Southern California bonsai. This is a California juniper that was styled and donated by Mr. Mas Moriguchi, as you can see. This is actually one of the more well-known California junipers. It has been named. And we have it out here just in honor of Mas, but also to highlight our old California junipers in our collection. Always a showstopper. You'll see we have a pretty good variety of trees. We still have some of our tropicals out. We haven't got quite cold enough for those to disappear yet. I'd like to point out this Elaeagnus. This is just coming into its flower, and so this is always a fun thing to have flowering and fruiting trees on display. And very beautiful cascade. Again, nice twigging, nice branching, but the flowers just coming into play here really make for a wonderful effect that the public really loves. See some of the effects of our colder weather. We have here a pomegranate donated by the late Bob Kanoshta. Again, very powerful tree, beautiful twigging, very good mass on this. This always is, again, a very popular tree. And as we just went through the color change and the leaf drop, it's been pretty entertaining for our guests. I'd like to point out this oak. This oak was donated by Al Nelson. This is a tree Al dug in the mid-'80s, and he estimated at that time that this tree was over 250 years old. So we're looking at something that's maybe getting close to 300. In my eye, this is one of the best depictions of a coastal live oak as a bonsai you'll see anywhere. The tree was cattle browsed, which gave it its very natural branching and massive trunk, and it's just a spectacular tree. We repotted it this year. Al came in, and I was surprised how aggressively we were able to go at the roots. But the tree, even after that, we defoliated it, and it came back, and again, just a stunning piece of our collection. Very proud of this tree. So from here, what we'll do is we'll go into our middle court. It's kind of a transition court leading up to our upper court. You can see we have our COVID signage and directional restrictions going on right now. But let me point out a couple of trees here. I'd like to point out this massive old olive donated by Bruce Hisiyasu, long time, very active bonsaist here in California. This tree, it's an example of an old gnarly tree where the main trunk has died and secondary trunks have taken over and now form the bulk of the bonsai here. Very large, it's a seedling olive with the smaller leaves, and that gnarly rugged trunk, you can tell that's been in the pot for many years because all the smooth qualities of the bark have long disappeared out of this tree. Again, a crowd favorite. It's so old and gnarly looking. I'd like to come and point out another really spectacular tree we have. This is a Chinese elm collected by Shigmia and donated here. This tree looks good from both sides. We can actually turn this tree around and it looks just as good from the back as the front, so it's nice because we can keep it on display a little longer and just rotate it in place. But the beautiful patterned trunk, all the old scars are so beautifully rolled, and again, the age of this tree is just very well expressed. Pretty nice. So if you want to take a little panorama around this little mid-court area, you'll see we've got some olives, elms. We've got a tropical ficus again over there. We haven't gotten quite cold enough to put those away. Lantana, another olive. We got a single nice big femina here on display, and then in the shadow over there in bloom is a rosemary. Again, anything that has flowers or fruit the public loves, so we always like to have something with that on display. Let's move to the upper court. So now we've moved up the middle court and we're in the Harry Harao viewing stone court here. Harry Harao not only was Mr. California Juniper, he was an avid stone collector, opened up lots of areas of California, including the Eel River, where many of these stones came from. It's interesting because it's not too often that a museum encourages people to actually touch the art. But yeah, people are encouraged to rub and touch and get their oils on this. Obviously, in times of COVID, not much of that is being done. But again, it's kind of unusual that people are encouraged to actually touch the art on display. So let's go into the Zilgit court. What's really remarkable about this upper display court is even though it looks ancient, the wood looks so weathered and it looks like it's been here forever, it's relatively young. It's about less than 15 years old, but it looked like this the minute it went up. Really, I think some of our backdrops are some of the best for bonsai. Some of the woodwork is spectacular. Again, we've got some beautiful pieces up here to kind of highlight. And let's go ahead and kind of walk this way a little bit. I'd like to point out this cork oak, another tree donated to us by Tom Chen. Spectacular corking, spectacular movement, beautiful taper, no big chops. Again, to me, one of the finer examples of a cork oak bonsai that you'll see. Continue to refine twigging and branching for all of our trees. Adding a little more density in the twigging is definitely our goal. And with this tree too, we've tried to bring a little more asymmetry into the design, adding our lengths to extend a little bit on the right. Let's continue around this loop. We have a California juniper here. I pointed out, if you notice, it isn't as styled and detailed out as some of our Californias. We kind of keep some of our trees in a more natural form, and so this tree has actually got that heavier crown and fuller top that you might see just in a tree in nature, but without it all layered out that we have some of our trees. So we like to show some variety. We consider this a teaching collection with educational focus. So to show some work in progress, to show some of the process of bonsai, it's also how we educate the public on how our art is done. So come on up this way a little further. And I'd like to point out the olive two trunk in the corner. That's actually 3 trunks. That's a pretty famous Frank Goya olive. That tree has appeared in many magazines. It's been on the cover of Bonsai in California. And that's one of the interesting things with some of the trees in our collection is we actually have publications that show them at much earlier stages. So we really can track the development of some of our most spectacular pieces. And again, there's been a lot of photographic evidence of that tree, and so we have a beautiful history of it. Part of what makes this interesting is the flowing nature of the trunk. Sometimes olive can have very stiff, straight lines, and this, it's all curve and movement, and for an olive, that's pretty unusual. So that makes this a pretty spectacular tree. Here we have a Hollywood juniper. You can see it's wired out, and in this case it's wired with aluminum, not necessarily copper. So again, we're not afraid to show some of our process to the public and let them have some idea of how bonsai are actually made and some of the different ways we make it. Again, beautiful old trunk here, wonderful fluting and movement as would be characteristic of a Hollywood juniper. Nice big cork tree. I'm guessing this had to be in someone's landscape at one time, given the size of it. Bark is beautiful on it, but again, it's a massive tree that's had a lot of age in the pot because of that bark texture. So again, the tropical's still out. You can see the yellow color. It's just starting to show a little reaction to the cold. So this will be swapped out in the next couple weeks. As you come up here, I'd like to point out an interesting little oddity as a bonsai. We actually have records that show that this tree at one time didn't have this elm in here. That was added on later. Unfortunately, when that second tree was picked, it was obviously either in full winter silhouette or it was in green summer growth, because you can tell that it's a slightly subtle different variety of elm and the way it turns color. In the spring and the fall, it's very obvious, but then at other times of the year, it blends in. So it's probably not something we'll ever change, but it's just a little oddity of this bonsai, and definitely it spurs questions by the public when they see that different color tree in there. But it's an old piece by the Komais, and again, it's an important bonsai for us. Up here, I'd like to point out another one of what I consider are truly spectacular pieces. This pomegranate, this was actually originally styled and designed by Jim Barrett. He grew it for many years. And again, I think this is one of the most spectacular twisted pomegranates in bonsai you'll see. The rootage, the nibari is stunning. The branching, the fluting, the muscling, the twisting, it's all in this tree, just expressed so beautifully. So yeah, this is we were very fortunate to acquire this tree. It was part of an estate sale a couple years back, and luckily it didn't go for the asking price, and I think that's one of the reasons we were able to acquire it. A very spectacular tree. Again, you can see the nice color change. We're getting some nice yellows off of our pomegranates this year. Another California juniper. Nice twists on this. There's some real good multiple twists along that trunk, and so again, that ends up really telling a wonderful story in that wood on, and so again, ends up being a crowd favorite a lot. Again, the massive base, the twists, pretty popular tree. As we work our way around, we have this cedar elm, and this tree gives us just spectacular fall color every year. It always gives us these real nice rich yellows, and one of the nice things too is it holds its leaves pretty good, so the color stays for a while. So we love having this tree up here in the fall going into winter, because the change is always very pleasant. Beautiful barking on the tree. Notice how the bark is in such beautiful proportion to the trunk. There's nothing that kind of makes you question the proportions of what you're seeing in this. Again, very popular tree through the transition. This tree in early spring is also gorgeous. The emerging leaves are just this beautiful light green, and so again, it's a multi-season delight. Here we have our Shohin display. I'm not going to step in and set off the alarm, but again, this whole structure was conceived and created by our craftsman Andrew Mitchell. The inserts actually slide out, can be flipped around, and so we can change the configuration. The circular stand in the center, he also fabricated from just iron bar that he hand wrought and welded and came up with the design. And so again, we're able to always have some Shohin display for the public as well. This also, you can see a little bit of the backlight coming through its translucent panels, and when in the afternoon when the sun comes from behind and casts a light on the panels, it really highlights the little trees in a beautiful way. So wonderful structure to really show off our little guys. Ray Blassingame is the person who takes care of our Shohin here. So here we have a nice natal plum. Again, we love showing the fruit. Again, that's some of the novelty that the public always really relates to. So yeah, while we still have a little bit of time showing this fruit, this tree will be out here. Some of our oak leaves. But we have a few pieces by Melba Tucker, some of her psyches, especially some of her olives, psyche, and so this is really quite a spectacular little rock planting. Quite the stone. Another pomegranate with really good fall color. This is a Golden State Bonsai Federation tree, as you can see by the signage. This was donated by Kathy Boomsma, who is a long time Southern California bonsaiist, and just got to the point where her trees were a little too big to care for, and so we ended up getting some spectacular old pieces of hers. So this old hollow trunk, again, it's quite a crowd favorite. this tree next to it as well, going through its fall color. This is an oak that was designed and then donated ultimately by Gloria Stewart. For those of you who may not recognize the name, Gloria Stewart was a famous actress. She was the original female lead in the original Invisible Man from the 30s. She retired from film to raise a family, but she did bonsai, and she was a loyal bonsai hobbyist all the way until she passed. And she ultimately ended up playing Old Rose in Titanic. And even when she got her fame back, she still came to Bonsai Club meetings and events. And again, we're lucky to have a couple of her pieces in our collection, including this nice old oak forest. So that's our upper court here. And when you come, there's probably around 70 trees that you'll see on display. But that's only a portion of our collection. We've got a number of trees, over 500 pieces actually, and most of them are back in our bonsai nursery. So probably the next thing would be to head back there and show you a little bit what goes on behind the scenes.